The title of the film, Ironman, was not planned. It was something that was triggered from Brandon's interview that we'll see later on about 3/4 of the way into the film. So when we reach that scene, we'll dive a little bit deeper into that. We open up with Brandon grabbing his backpack and taking out his baseball glove and ball and having a catch with his father, and defines the father-son bond. We scored this with the song Begin Again from Matt Hires, and it's a very short scene. It only lasts about 25 seconds. It immediately transitions into the conflict of the story, and we changed gears by changing the song to an orchestral ambient track called Awake from Michael Otteson. We had both Brandon and his parents tell us about finding the lump in their interviews, but we felt it was more powerful to utilize Brandon's part of the interview to introduce the lump. Sometimes we don't get much out of kids when we interview them, but Brandon did a really good job on this part of the interview. Of course, the parents pick up the story from there and go more into detail. That shot with the bike was really supposed to be a simple shot, but it's amazing how many takes it took for him to land in focus. We finally got it, though. Although I did bring lighting, the interviews for the parents I did in the dining room. There was a large window that I used as a key, and that was the only source of light, this available light, which I thought came out great. So I filmed both them and Brandon in this room to utilize that light. This shot is the only stock footage clip purchased from Video Blocks. We wanted to make sure that the sound design of the hospital ambiance was noticeable here, since we were limited with mostly pictures. It's always tricky when you have two people in an interview because you have to decide between one mic or two mics, but I use the Rode NTG3 and it performs really well if you put it in the middle and just do a few tweaks to make sure that their voices are even when you're testing the audio before shooting. When we do these stories, it's very common that we get pictures from the family of the child smiling. It really doesn't connect when you see smiles and you hear the sadness of the story. So we usually have to go back and see if they have other pictures that are a little bit more vulnerable and show the emotion of what they're going through at the time. One of the most emotional moments in the interview was when the father talked about not being able to go in the room to be part of telling Brandon that he has cancer. Everyone handles it differently, and some people just simply shut down. That really choked me up when we were filming. This was actually a hospital shot that we filmed for another nonprofit a few years back. So we repurpose B-roll whenever we get a chance. This film's Act 1, 2, 3 is a little different than the norm. Our Act 1 is very short, and our Act 2 ends a little bit past the halfway point, extending the length of our Act 3. But the way we break up this story is the setting, the conflict, and then the resolution. You know, human curiosity says, well, what happened to the boy? So we're about to tell them. Of course, we change the song. We come back to another Matt Hires song called Mothers and Fathers. Now that we're at this part of the story, we're able to use more of those smiling pictures as Brandon's getting better. We circle back to the baseball scene, symbolizing that Brandon is healthy and he's back. Brandon expressed his enjoyment with drawing, and of course, he's very close to his sister, so we thought this was a really important scene to shoot to show Brandon doing what he does in his family environment. Something we discovered when we were editing this was the father's reference to superheroes with him drawing. And it clicked immediately when we talked to Brandon. Brandon tells me about the port in his chest where they have to give him medication. But he also references that Ironman has a port in his chest too, so it makes him feel like a superhero. And that really hit home for me. It was a no-brainer to name this film after the reference of Iron Man, and it really speaks volumes as to Brandon's character. The lighting during the drawing scene was at night. We took a Dado 650 light, which is equivalent to like an RE1K, and we bounced it off the ceiling. Very quick, very simple way to light a scene soft and move on. Same lighting technique while they're playing video games as well. It's very important that we're in and out of these shoots within 4 to 5 hours so we can keep the cost down for the nonprofit. I think this is an important part of the story where Brandon's father talks about Brandon's character as he helps other kids who are scared going through the process, and Brandon is the brave one helping the kids, even kids older than him. For the stairs scene, this was actually exactly what I saw when I first walked in, when I met the family. This is what Brandon did when he met me, and I thought that was hysterical. So, of course, I had him reenact that scene. This was edited on Premiere Pro and graded with an adjustment layer where we added some fade and pumped up the contrast after the fade. But of course, we're still limiting the blacks and the whites to give it that soft feel.